Kevin Bowen here.
9-yard field goal
Don't
for
forget
Adam
to listen to the
Vinatieri.
Fan now on 93.5 or 107.5 FM.
The kick is on its way.
And check out our latest coverage online at 1075thefan.com.
It clanked off the left upright, but it went through, and it's good. Brissett out of the gun. They throw it right side. It's caught by Jack Doyle. First down, 20, 15, and he goes down and he stays inbounds. Slides up to the 14-yard line. That's a gain of 13, and Jack Doyle comes up with a huge catch. A first down for the Colts. Atlanta's out of timeouts. The Colts lead by 3. A minute 38 to go in the game, and the Colts should come out in victory formation and take a couple of knees to salt the game away.
Colts win. 2-1 on the season. We're back. Another edition of Kevin's Corner. 27-24, is that the final? I think it was. Colts moved to 2-1 on the year. First time since 2013 that they are 2-1. And, wow, what a weekend. Joey Molinaro gets married. Colts win 27-24. I don't know about you guys. I kind of hated Thursday's podcast. Thought I sounded dull. Hate talking by myself for that long. So I brought in one of the greatest winners I know, probably the greatest winner I know besides Tiger Woods. We got Maddie Bowen back in studio. Mads, did you think you'd be invited back in?
Well, I got invited back in when Joey had his bachelor party.
I forgot about that. And then Andrew Luck decided
and then
to
Andrew
say,
Luck retired. So I figured I couldn't do the podcast justice enough to do the podcast following the retirement.
Yeah, smart. I think I wanted you in here, right? And you kind of made the executive decision of like, no.
I gave you a hard no.
Yeah, that was smart. What do you think of the wedding?
It was such a great time. Someone at the wedding told me something really funny that I can't believe I've never thought of. They were fans of the podcast, and they said that you and Joey should be known as Bow and Arrow.
That Danny Cox?
No, it wasn't. It was
a
guy named Alex Bill. I went to high school with him. But he, it's like Brangelina or...
Interesting. Okay.
Your celeb name.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
I like it.
Let me run that by Joey on Thursday's podcast.
But we had a great time.
Yeah, it was fun.
Such a fun wedding.
Shout out to Joey and Riley. Obviously, Joey's out today. He will be back Thursday, so don't fret. Joey Molinaro will be back, but a beautiful time in Hope, Indiana. Got home in time to watch the Irish make it somewhat competitive, and listen to you yell at me because I yell at 18-year-old kids.
Yeah, that you do that.
They get $200,000 to go to Notre Dame. I can yell at them.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I thought it was a fun game to watch.
Great game.
And I mean, so much fun football so far this season.
Tons. And I think what we saw on Saturday, actually, we saw a little bit on Sunday. We'll obviously touch on that in things I like, things I didn't like with this podcast. We'll hit on Twitter questions per usual. And yesterday it was a battle of freaking attrition out there. I don't know if I've seen that many big in-game injuries in quite some time. For Atlanta, Keanu Neal tears his Achilles. You had Grady Jarrett out on that final drive of the game, which is a huge drive. Ito Smith, their backup running back, has a concussion. Obviously for the Colts, a T.Y. Hilton injury in the second half. And Malik Hooker has the mysterious kind of third quarter thing. And if I forget to talk about Hooker, Maddie, tell me to talk about him at some point today.
Okay.
But yeah, I just, Darius Leonard not being in the lineup, the Colts get banged up on their D-line. But this is kind of the next step for this football team. It's like, can you win games when your depth is tested? And I didn't think this team could do that last year. They honestly didn't do it in the first 6 weeks of the season when they had some injuries. And then late in the year, they stayed pretty healthy. There were moments of leakage and things like that. But I thought yesterday they were able to withstand that. And you stay ahead of the 8 ball. You get a win at home. You should beat the Falcons at home. You're 2-1. Now you can get to 3-1 when you beat the Raiders on Sunday because the Raiders are the Raiders. And this is a team that I think is, through the early part of the season, I don't know if anyone could have thought of a better start. To be 2-1, to have Jacoby Brissett played like he did yesterday. All in all, I think you got to be pretty pleased if you're a Colts fan. And, boy, the offense was good yesterday. So good. Defense terrible. Matt Ryan shredded the Colts. And, Yeah, 2-1 now, and just a big win on multiple levels, which we'll get into.
Yeah. Speaking of sort of all of that, let's just talk about in more depth what you really liked yesterday. I know you touched on it a little bit here. I loved Jacoby. That was really fun to watch.
Outstanding. He was outstanding.
He was so much fun. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on what you liked yesterday?
Well, before we get into Jacoby, I want to start with the head coach, Frank Reich. And we're going to talk about his play calling, but let's talk about Frank Reich and how his team is disciplined. I touched on it earlier. Notre Dame, not ready for Athens, Georgia. Not ready for that environment. Looked like a high school team out there trying to, handle the 90,000 people in that stadium. I was pissed. I was yelling. I wasn't happy. You imagine being a fan of the Atlanta Falcons yesterday? Watching a professional sports team. 16 penalties for 128 yards. 16 penalties for 128 yards. 7 of them went for first downs. We can make fun of the Falcons, but I've just done that, but let's give credit to the Colts. Disciplined football team. You represent the mantra and the mentality and the mental makeup of your head coach. You watch Frank Reich on the sideline, stoic. You watch Brian Kelly on the sideline, chaotic. Yeah. It's just something where I think there's something to it. Being an IU grad, obviously, as you, Mads, I feel like at times I compare like watching Tom Crean coach in his basketball team. Tom Crean is a nut. He's a lunatic on the sidelines. His basketball team played chaotic. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like you look over that sideline and you want to call me an influence. And Frank Reich is that. And he made it clear coming into this season. I asked him several times about the slow starts. The Colts have been horrible in starting seasons, dating back early in the Chuck Pagano ages. Frank Reich said repeatedly, time in, time out, we have got to be a disciplined football team and not commit penalties. We see a huge emphasis around the league right now in penalties. And boom, there's Frank Reich's team coming into Sunday. 11 penalties on the whole year, tied for the fewest in the NFL. 75 yards in penalty yardage this season, the best in the NFL. And then he goes out there and his team gets 80 yards in penalty advantage. And again, a lot of that has to do with Atlanta's idiocy. Is that a word?
Idiocracy?
I don't know. They're just idiots.
Idiocy.
I don't know.
I think it's idiocy.
It's 8:47 on a Monday morning. I tend to make up words this early.
Yeah, that makes me feel a couple of ways. Like, on one hand, I love that about Frank Reich, too, and I always have. And on one hand, it makes you feel like, wow, this is going to be a great team despite what has happened. But the other side of me says, what if we would have had Andrew Luck here? What would that look like?
Yeah, oh boy, you're going to get the YouTube commenters coming at you early. Are you going there? We're not even 10 minutes into
I don't want to even think about the past. I just want to think about the future, truthfully. But when you say that, when you say how he's really formed this team and how they've started off so well this year, there's a part of you that can't help but think that way.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great. But again, I think Jacoby Brissett has been really, really good. We'll touch on that next. But the last thing on Reich that I want to hit on before we move to the new QB1 in town, who ironically enough was announced third to last in pregame warmups. Don't know if there's any quarterback around the league that get announced third to last.
That's weird.
His play calling. He's playing chess. Everybody else is playing checkers. I've said it time and time again. He is a mastermind as an offensive head coach. He is outstanding schematically, and you don't have T.Y. Hilton during the second half yesterday. How many times we've seen this offense just get stuck in mud when 13's been on the sidelines? They still move the football. They have the one poor drive in the third quarter, and then those final 2 drives. You go 11 plays, you get a touchdown, then you go 9 plays. You finish the game with the ball in your hands. You didn't do that in Nashville. There's no way I was the only one thinking this. I'm thinking to myself, if Rigoberto's got to go out there and punt one more time, or even if Vinny has to go out there and kick a field goal, Matt Ryan's going to go lead a touchdown drive, and the Colts are going to be 1-2. That's the NFL. Parity is defined in this league. It's why we love the NFL. Every game is heart-stopping, and Frank Reich gives the Colts an advantage week in and week out. He's a weapon, which is so weird. I mean, first off, it's weird to look at Frank Reich and know that he's an ex-preacher and call him a weapon. But he is. He's a mastermind when it comes to play calling. The two plays that I can't get over are the two Zach Pascal plays from yesterday. Zach Pascal. No one started him in fantasy. The guy's played 54 snaps. Coming into Sunday, he had played 54 snaps this season. Matty Bowen had been targeted the same amount as Zach Pascal.
Well, yeah, I remember when that play happened yesterday. I said, that was so easy. I mean, no one was covering him. And you said, no, that was really good play calling. They haven't thrown to him yet this year.
Literally, yeah. Maddie and I went back, watched the game together before she went upstairs to watch the Emmys. You were hanging in there for about a half. And that Zach Pascal, he was high school open. You know, you see kids that are just wide open on Friday nights. You don't usually see that in the NFL. Zach Pascal was wide open in an area of the field you don't usually see people that wide open. But it's the window dressing. I'm going to go back and try and find it. I know there's been a similar little, whatever you want to call it, screen, I guess, maybe to Nyheim Hines, or maybe a little bit of a wheel route to Hines. So he occupies everyone pre-snap going in motion. You have Hilton on the post corner, which carries the cornerback and keeps the safety in the middle of the field. And Zach Pascal is wide open. And then you come back in the second half, and it's a 3rd and 1. There's no T.Y. Hilton. Atlanta's selling out on the run. Here comes Zach Pascal in motion. You're thinking crack block, similar to the 2-point conversion against the Chargers in week 1. No. Zach Pascal, beautiful job of selling it. Then he's wide open. Jacoby finds him. Just an outstanding day. I mean, whether it's window dressing or, wrinkles and personnel groupings, Frank Reich just gets it, and he gives you an advantage when you're depleted personnel-wise and your offense has to do the heavy lifting. More often than not, the Colts have the advantage in their play caller. I asked Frank Reich after the game, I go, I know this is an awkward question, but how would you grade your play calling? And he's such a humble human being, he wouldn't even go there. But I'll give him an A. He deserves that. Frank Reich was outstanding yesterday, and he's a big reason why the Colts are 2-1.
Love it. Love Frank Reich. All right, moving on to something else you liked. I know we talked, let's talk about Vinny. Yeah?
I want to go QB1.
You want to go QB1? Oh, okay, let's talk about Jacoby first.
You like his demeanor.
I love his demeanor. I think he's a great guy. I think he kind of mirrors Frank Reich in his, and just his calmness out there.
I think that's a really good point in that within the game, Jacoby Brissett is so calm, but when there are moments to get fired up, he gets fired up. And that's why his teammates love him. His teammates absolutely love him. But you bring up that point about how calm he is throughout the course of a game. Frank Reich said it's been interesting watching. He feels like Jacoby's the calmest in the fourth quarter. That shouldn't be the case for any athlete, really, in the most pressure-packed situations. But that's when Brissett has been the calmest. And you look to the game-clinching play, the 3rd and 4 to Jack Doyle. It's a read option. It's an RPO. And it's Jacoby Brissett's call. It's a run-pass check. Jacoby Brissett, you go to the line of scrimmage, and it's your call. That's how much faith Frank Reich has in his quarterback. His quarterback delivered with the completion to Jack Doyle. For those that haven't read it yet, the Bowen household was up early this morning, and I was reading Albert Breer's Monday Morning Quarterback article, and a shout out to Mark on Twitter for drawing me to that article if I hadn't read it already, which that's part of my Monday morning routine. Albert Breer got Frank Reich on the phone after the game and touched on some more Jacoby Brissett stuff, and I wanted to make sure I included a few of those notes in here. Reich said that Jacoby and him were talking Saturday morning, and Reich told Jacoby that he had as good a week of practice as a quarterback can have. Frank Reich, I mean, in our Thursday practice, it's like it was perfection from the quarterback position. Reich and Jacoby meet every Saturday morning, and basically Reich said to him, you are in the zone. You've been in the zone all week. I think it's going to carry over into the game. What's Jacoby do?
Carries it over.
Completes his first 16 passes of the game.
Yeah, which didn't he set some record for himself maybe? Or?
I think, yeah, definitely for himself, and I think he was one short of Peyton's record to start a game.
Oh, man, one short?
Yeah. I mean, anytime you're in company with Colts, great. I mean, the Colts have got some quarterbacks that have done some things in the record book. Just outstanding. And, like, this wasn't the game manager Jacoby we saw week 1 and week 2. Like, those were nice performances, but he didn't do the heavy lifting. He did the heavy lifting for you yesterday. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting, Reich being really candid, kind of saying, I think Jacoby needed this performance just to show that entire locker room. I've got a little Andrew Luck in me. Mm-hmm. That was more Andrew Luck-like out of Jacoby Brissett, creating some plays. I mentioned it last week on the podcast. I like to see him throw some guys open a little bit more. Mm-hmm. I thought he did a better job of that. Chunk plays, hit on 3 chunks that had been missing the first 2 games of the season. And something that I really loved from Sunday, this probably won't be a drive that stands out to most people, and I'm going to dial up the game book here if I can find it. It was a 1st and 20. Was it in the first quarter? Yeah, here it is. All right, 1st and 20, okay? Colts are up 3-0. Matt Ryan and the Falcons had punted it. You got a 1st and 20 here. And what does Brissett do? Methodically, death by 1,000 paper cuts to pick up the first down. 5 yards to Hilton. 10 yards to Doyle. Now you're in 3rd and 5. Now it's manageable. 9 yards to Ebron. That is deflating to a defense. Mm-hmm. What does Frank Reich do on the next play? Zach Pascal. The Colts are dancing. What was that dance?
That's a pretty common dance, I think.
Was it a Soldier Boy? Were they kind of like?
Yeah. Oh wow. I wish
you
the
wish
listeners
this a video podcast.
Could see this. Yeah.
Yeah. I was dancing like that Saturday night in Hope, Indiana. Was I not?
You were putting on a really good show in Hope, Indiana. Only for you, Joey. He doesn't usually do that.
That was big.
Yeah.
Pascal's touchdown was huge, and I don't know. I was really impressed by Jacoby Brissett. I think a lot of listeners of the podcast know that I've kind of been on the give me 5 to 6 weeks before I give a firm grade. Yesterday's a type of performance that makes me believe in what the Colts believe. Like, they think Jacoby Brissett has it in him. Define it. Is that a top 8 quarterback in the league one day, which I think is what he has to get to for a team to have sustained success and routinely be with the Kansas Cities and the New Englands of the world? I don't know, but Sunday was really, really good.
Yeah, when they put that scoreboard of those first 15 or so completions.
A lot of green.
That was super cool to see. And that last completion that he made, I think that was like the 29-yarder or something. Yes. That was a beautiful pass.
I thought some of the deep balls to Hilton, when Hilton got laid out by Purdue's own Ricardo Allen. Shout out to Grace Allen, great Instagram. Eric Ebron as well. Had a chunk play, I'm thinking. Those are the big-time throws. A couple of just big-time throws that I think Brissett hadn't made enough of maybe in the first couple games, because this passing offense was poor. It was poor the first 2 weeks of the season from a yards per attempt standpoint. Before we move on from Jacoby, couple quick things. You had 7 drives on Sunday. 6 of them had at least 3 first downs. 6 of 7 drives with at least 3 first downs. That is consistent, moving the ball. Those drives all lasted at least 7 plays. 5 of them, or 6 of them now that I look at it. I think over 9 plays. I mean, it was, when your defense can't stop a nosebleed, your offense has got to carry it. And they did that. Jacoby Brissett, I thought Frank Reich had a great comment yesterday in the post-game press conference. Someone asked him, who's getting the game ball. Frank Reich goes, we don't usually announce that until Monday. It's going to Jacoby. Yeah, he's just kind of like, it's going to QB1, number 7. First start in his era. Jacoby Brissett delivered. And if he keeps on doing that Andrew Luck picture that came off the side of the building, number 7 in blue is going to go up there pretty soon.
Can't wait to see that day. Let's talk about depth.
Tested on Sunday. And I touched on this a little bit in the opener. No Leonard. Hooker misses a quarter. And I guess I'll get into that right now, the whole Hooker thing. Okay, so I'm up there, bird eye view up there of section 700. Worst view of any NFL stadium. Maybe New Orleans is worse. Maybe Houston's worse, but it's right up there. And all of a sudden I see Hooker jog back and forth from the locker room and like jogging aggressively. I'm like, well, that doesn't look like it's a lower body injury or something like that. Comes on the sidelines, talking to the medical team, talking to the rehab staff. I'm very confused. So I asked Frank Reich. He eventually goes back in the game, goes in the game, I think in the fourth quarter. I asked Frank Reich afterwards. He's like, yeah, just, it's a rotational thing. We like to kind of rotate our safeties, keep them fresh. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I just don't. Malik Hooker played every snap in 95-degree heat in Nashville the week before. Something was wrong. Why is he talking to the medical and rehab staff? If he's really resting or you just want to get Kari Willis on the field, he'd still have his helmet on. He'd still be doing things. And the vibe I got after the game was there was an injury and there was a risk of they wanted to make sure that there wasn't a further risk of long-term injury with Malik Hooker. So you had Hooker out for a third quarter. T.Y. Hilton is out for the second half. Danico Autry banged up. Tycon Lewis banged up. You don't have Jabal Sheard. Your depth has got to show up. And, guys like Zach Pascal shows up big time for you. I thought the defense was shaky, but Anthony Walker had a couple moments as well. Clayton Geathers is a guy that, catches that interception from Matt Ryan as well. And kudos to T.Y. Hilton. I know he didn't play the second half, but that first half he was unbelievable. The hit he took from Allen, T.Y.'s tough. T.Y. is tough. He's 5'9". We don't look at him and think tough. He's tough. Said after the game that the doctors thought if he went back out there, he could possibly tear the quad, which is what he was limited with all week long coming into the game. That's why he didn't play in the second half. 10 targets and 8 catches. That might be the most catches T.Y. Hilton's ever had in a half. I probably should have looked that up before this pod, but you're depth tested. It delivered for you, and that's part of a 16-game season. Like, no one's going to apologize for you in the NFL. Atlanta's got injuries too. No one is going to apologize for you. You got to win that game at home, and you did.
Awesome. All right, I jumped the gun earlier, but it was because I was excited because
you aren't the only one.
I'm very excited that Adam Vinatieri had an awesome day yesterday. Although started off a little bit shaky with it ricocheting off of the upright.
Yeah.
That was a certainly a nerve-wracking moment. Thank God it ricocheted the right way.
Well, kicking gods.
Yeah.
Kicking gods inside of Lucas Oil Stadium.
And then from there it was up and to the right. So let's talk about Adam Vinatieri. Well, I guess up and to the right probably.
I'm like, oh God, up and to the right. Oh boy.
I'm in the business world. That's a business term for good.
You got your sales mode going early on a Monday. That's not a good football term on this podcast.
Okay, not up and to the right.
Everything in between the uprights.
It was up and to the middle.
Yes. Better. Much better there. I thought it was really cool, the ovation the crowd gave him before the game. Or I guess really when he came on the field for his first kick.
Right. That's what was cool about it, because they were giving him the ovation before anything happened.
Like, we believe in you.
Yeah.
And a lot of those fans, they probably would have booed had he missed it.
100%.
But it's one of those things where, and this is part of fandom. This is why I love all of you people that listen to this podcast and are crazy fans. I'm a crazy fan. My wife can tell you firsthand. She watched me operate Saturday night with that Notre Dame game. You have to have belief in him because he has the jersey on game day. Like, he's one of you. Like, he's playing. Like, you need him to make field goals. If you lose that game, now you're behind the 8 ball, and who knows what happens. So that encouragement, I don't know if it helped him or not, but hell, maybe that crowd blew that ball right off the upright and right in. Man, that was hooking fast. That thing was 50 yards. Does it go in? I mean, one more yard. Boy, that was that thing was moving, but 49 yards, good. And then the rest of the day, pretty solid.
Yeah.
He made the 3 extra points from 33 yards, and I think the other field goal was like 31 yards. And I just felt like it was needed. Does it all of a sudden make me think that I'm going to ignore all kicking questions for the next, 13 weeks of the season? Hell no. No, you're kicking indoors. It's not like it's going to be an Arrowhead in 2 weeks, all those things. Adam Vinatieri's got to string some weeks together, but that was needed. I'm sure we'll get a lot of Twitter questions like, are you concerned about how the 49-yard field goal looked? I mean, it wasn't the prettiest kick.
Yeah.
And, I had my brother calling me after the game saying, boy, that was like a duck hook going out of bounds and it hits a tree and comes back in the fairway. And sometimes that's all it needs. You just need a break. You just need something to go your way.
Right.
It's
Put you mentally back in the right place.
Yes, and mentally he's been, I think, beaten up, honestly, which is crazy to say, but it's a shooter that's in a slump and gets a layup. It's a wideout that struggle with drops and he gets a screen pass to start a game. A baseball player gets on via an air. It's something that just gives you a jolt and makes you exhale. Mm-hmm. Boom, and you're back in it. So who knows? Maybe that's big. I saw Zach Kiefer and I were talking before the game. Vinatieri was kicking with a couple different color cleats before the game. Nothing to worry about there. He said he just breaks in different cleats throughout the season.
Good time to test some new shoes, huh?
Well, yeah. Trust me, I was kind of like, oh boy. I'm like looking up pictures from like the preseason game. Like, are those black cleats or white cleats he was wearing? I'm like, God, this is my life right now. But this is why kicker hell sucks. So Adam Vinatieri has moved up. He's out of hell. What, is purgatory above hell?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so he's in purgatory. Great golf course up in Noblesville. So yeah.
Purgatory is a good word for it. He's definitely in purgatory right now.
Yeah, better. Better. And some people want to be like, oh, that absolves everything. Let's not go there, people. String them together. Do them outdoors. Stay healthy. And Adam Vinatieri is going to be the Colts kicker for the rest of the season.
Love it.
All right, what else we got?
All right, moving on to things that you didn't necessarily like. Got to cover some of those things. Yeah. I know we talked a little bit about the defense. Elaborate on that.
Well, I thought they were horrible, honestly. I thought it was putrid. Wow. Coming into this game, I think on Thursday I mentioned this. As a son of two teachers, I like to do a lot of grading. And we're grading the Colts. Their curriculum has upgraded this season. That's what happens when you bring back 11 starters. You add Justin Houston. You spend 7 of your first 8 draft picks on the defensive side of the ball. You want to be a playoff caliber unit. You need to be graded on a higher standard. Phillip Rivers, your defense was bad. Marcus Mariota, your defense was good. Phillip Rivers is good. Marcus Mariota is bad. Here comes Matt Ryan. That's somewhere in the middle. Maybe a little bit better than average. How do you grade out? I thought they were terrible, honestly. I know you had the pick. You gave up 3 points in the first half. But to me, it's the refusal to make adjustments and you allowing 8 of 10 on third down. Atlanta's drives yesterday. Atlanta had 6 actual drives. One of them was a kneel down, so we're going to take that out. 6 drives. Those 6 drives averaged 4.5 first downs per drive. 4.5 first downs per drive. That's awful. Awful by the Indianapolis defense. Atlanta couldn't run the ball at all the first 2 weeks of the year. I think Devontae Freeman, I'd ask you to look that up, Maz, but I feel like we could be here till midnight. Mm-hmm. Devontae Freeman was horrible the first few weeks, or just wasn't productive is how I should say. 5.5 yards per carry. Matt Ryan, 22 of 23 in the second half. It's just I expect better out of that unit. And I get it, Darius Leonard's not in there, but it's not just Leonard's absence. Your D-line, your starting defensive line was, Autry missed a few plays. He wasn't out for very long. Your starting D-line, the goose egg on sacks against a banged-up Atlanta offensive line, not a very mobile quarterback, 0 sacks against Matt Ryan.
Yeah, that's not good.
It's not good at all, and it's a unit that's played so well early in the season. Colts came into Sunday, I think, 3rd in the league in sacks per pass attempt. I think it was like 12%. I mean, you were 0% Sunday. Gether's big job on catching the interception. I did think Bobby Okereke had decent coverage there, and that's an overthrow. That I don't know if Matt Ryan didn't see him. I mean, that ball was so high. Manute Bol wouldn't have caught that. You know Manute Bol?
No, I don't. Who is that?
7'7" NBA player. Google image Manute Bol.
Oh, I always think of, who's the other really, really tall guy?
Yao Ming.
Yao
Dikembe
Ming.
Mutombo. George Mirasam.
Is Dikembe Mutombo really tall?
Oh, yeah. Wags his finger. When he blocks shots, he wags his finger to say, no, no, no.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Matt Ryan was 22 of 23 in the second half.
Matt Ryan's tall, too.
6'5". You think Matt Ryan's hot?
I think he's kind of cute.
But I want to see more involvement out of the defense. I don't want to see this team settle down in the cover 2 zone and try and hold on. Like, dictate things. Rick Venturi texted me after the game, and we are both in the same boat that we cannot believe that Frank Reich is so schematically wired as a head coach. He loves the whole pawn piece aspect that comes to the offensive side of football. And Matt Eberflus is over here, and he's just kind of like, effort, speed, cover 2. Like, I just want to see more dictating out of this defense. And this is how we're going to grade the unit. Big picture, what we saw out of this defense, nothing has changed in my mind. We're going to get potentially to this team December and January, because right now, this AFC South, first team to win 9, first team to win 10 games, wins this division? That was a big win by Houston in L.A. yesterday. I don't know if Deshaun Watson can survive 16 games. Well, if he does, this is a team that is going to have to prove it against Watson's, and when you get in the playoffs, you're going to see better quarterbacks. So yeah, I thought the defense was not good enough to be a playoff type unit at all.
Think they'll bounce back?
You know, Derek Carr, he's not Marcus Mariota bad. He's probably not Matt Ryan good, and Oakland has so much dysfunction. I mean, Oakland has not looked good. What are they, 1-2 on the year? And I think they were getting their ass kicked yesterday by Minnesota before they made it look decent on the scoreboard. I just don't have faith in this defense against the elite quarterbacks. I don't. Bounce back against Derek Carr, maybe a little bit, although Derek Carr shredded him last year. And then what do you have in 2 weeks? You got Patrick Mahomes. You got the best offense in football waiting for you. So This defense has got to make strides. And, yeah, we'll get into a little bit later on things that I don't like still. But I didn't like the complimentary football that you got out of that unit.
Okay. You heard it here. Okay, let's talk about injuries.
Yeah, the Hilton injury will be something to watch. You know, just like I mentioned earlier, you said the quad injury. He didn't want to go back in there. Doctors thought he could possibly tear it or just didn't want to risk further injury. So we'll see if that means he's got to rest a week or if there's something he can play through. He actually heard it not on the touchdown. I know he went straight to the locker room after the touchdown. He said that he felt it aggravate a few plays before that. Tyquan Lewis was in a boot, right ankle. He's been a big part of your third down package, so that'll be something to watch as well. And then Malik Hooker, I think just monitor it. You know, he's a guy who's been banged up before. You got to watch that. Danico Autry had the eye injury, which he played through. But this, it's a football team that you like the depth, but obviously you want to stay away from some of these big names. I mean, you're talking, Leonard, Hilton, Hooker. Mm-hmm. Those are three of your most 6, 7 best players, most important players, whatever you want to argue. Mm-hmm. So just a little bit of injury watch as the Colts get ready for the Raiders in week 4.
All right. And then what about a plan for Julio Jones?
Yeah, Julio. Is he the best receiver in football, you think?
I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily say that.
Frank Reich says it.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I would trust Frank Reich over me.
Yeah, well, that's probably the smartest comment I've heard all day. A plan for Julio Jones. If you had a plan, I didn't see it. And I go back to, again, game planning against the opposing team's best players. Try and take them out of the game. Julio Jones finished Sunday with 9 targets, 8 catches. So what that means is there was 1 incompletion we saw when Matt Ryan targeted Julio Jones was when Rock Ya-Sin had that coverage early in the game. I think it was a third down early in that game. And Rock kind of got his hands on him early in the play. And that disrupted some sort of timing. Matt Ryan overthrows Julio. And then how many times throughout the rest of the game, yes, there were times where Julio beat man coverage, and he showed why he's one of the best receivers in the league. But there are other times where it's free release. No one even sniffs him on the first 5-10 yards of the route. Julio Jones settles into the zone, and it's pitch and catch. It's Brad Bowen and Kevin Bowen in the backyard. It's just easy. And that stuff just cannot happen. And that, I guess, is what is probably the most frustrating aspect of it for Colts fans, is that you didn't see adjustments. When your pass rush isn't getting home, why not throw in a little bit more press? When you know Rock Ya-Sin, that's what he's known for. He's known as kind of a press corner. So you aren't going to see many Julio Jones type guys the rest of the year. You are going to see DeAndre Hopkins a couple times. But that, to me, was a big issue and continues to be an issue. That, yes, you can throw this into the defensive effort and that being a negative, but you got to have plans to take away the best skill players in the other team. And I thought the Colts struggled in that on Sunday. All right, Twitter time. Are you ready?
Yeah, this is my favorite part.
All right. Well,
I'm ready.
All right, Twitter time.
Twitter time. Let's start with Matt. Matt says, amazing gut check win for the banged-up Colts. What did you think overall of Okereke? Also, why didn't the Colts bring pressure up the middle on third and long all game?
Yeah, preaching to the choir there. Okereke, I thought decent. What do you have? 8 tackles and probably played nearly 100% of the snaps. I mean, you can't grade him like an A, obviously, when you see what the defensive performance was, especially up the middle of the field. There were a couple shaky moments there, but I just think he needs more reps. I'm curious to see, how much when Leonard does come back, do we see him and Walker kind of split those reps a little bit more? But I didn't notice anything too alarming with Bobby Okereke. But again, the Atlanta offense performs like the Atlanta offense did. You can't give him just some unbelievable grade.
Cool. Cody. Hey, Cody. His Twitter question is, what do you think about the Colts' zone defense? It seems to me it's too easy for these elite QBs to split defenders. They have too much time. Also, Rock Ya-Sin still looks shaky in zone defense.
Yeah, I think it's good points, Cody. Rock, again, I go back to what I said earlier. For a guy that is so good in man coverage in college, I would like to have seen a little bit more of that in the second half, or just allow him to kind of flourish in that. I get it. He's got to learn how to play zone at some point, but you would like to see, better from him, or him just put in more advantageous situations. And, I mean, for all this talk about the Colts wanting to play more man and being open to playing more man coverage, I just don't think we've seen it. And it's not like I exclusively want, Pierre to see her on an island with Julio Jones. Bracket him. Put Malik Hooker over there. Put Kari Willis over there. Something to try and take away the opposing team's best player.
Cool. Next question is from MCMXXIV. I think that's MCM24.
Oh, nice. I don't know my Roman numerals.
That could be wrong. It could be 26. Is all the hype around Deion Kane just smoke and mirrors? The Colts have created a TV show for the guy. I was on the Kane bandwagon at first, but I feel like he's getting far more hype than he deserves. Why do you think do you think Deion Kane will ever become the wide receiver Indy wants us to believe?
Oh my gosh, he's 3 weeks into it after a torn ACL. I mean, come on now. I am a little surprised we haven't seen more of Deion Kane without Devin Funchess. He played the most snaps of any wideout on the team. We had 3 targets yesterday, 1 catch. I would like to see Kane get involved a little bit more. Certainly if T.Y. Hilton's got to miss game 3, or week 4, I should say, he will definitely play more. But yeah, I don't think this is anything too alarming with Deion Kane. He's getting back into it. I expected a few more targets, but I don't think this is necessarily on Deion Kane. The Colts are spreading the ball around. I think people would like to see more touches for Paris Campbell as well. But clearly Frank Reich wants to have, a guy like Chester Rogers played 20-some snaps yesterday, wasn't targeted. Like, they like to rotate at wideout. Selfishly, I'd probably like to see that snap count come down a little bit more for Kane or Campbell, but that's just not how Frank Reich rolls.
I kind of like the idea of spreading it out.
Yeah, but
Good problem to have.
people are pissed because they want their fantasy players to get all the
Oh,
playing time.
I see. Now I understand.
Yeah. It's all about fantasy.
Okay. This question's from Parker. Hey, Kevin, love your podcast. Thanks, Parker. I'm going to squeeze down here a little bit. I know it's early, but based off of what we've seen in the Redskins, what kind of value do you think that second rounder will yield, and what position groups would you guess the Colts target in the draft based on the sudden depth on defense?
Wow, Parker's already going there. So you got more?
Yeah, there's more to this question. Anyway, we see a first-round QB off the board to give Jacoby some competition. That is a three-parter, I think.
Wow, well, if you're drafting a first-round QB, that's your QB. Point blank, period. You don't draft a first-round QB to be in competition. Like, I'm tired of these teams being like, oh, let's stick with Eli Manning for 2 weeks. Stop it. Go start Daniel Jones and move on. Let Eli ride off into the sunset.
With his 20 mil.
Right, exactly. But, yeah, I think, Washington looks bad, I'm pretty sure. Did they win? I don't know. I mean, the day that I worry about the Washington Redskins, I guess I should start worrying about them because the Colts have a draft pick. Washington plays tonight, now that I think about it. Washington Bears tonight. Well, who's the Monday night game, Mads? Do you know?
I don't.
What do you think the chances of you knowing that were before I asked?
If the Colts were playing, I would know.
That's right. Yeah, Washington's 0-2. They got the Bears tonight. So, yeah, I mean, it looks like it's going to be a high pick. The Colts are going to have the draft capital. If they want to make a quarterback move, they're going to have draft capital. Jacoby Brissett said yesterday, shut the hell up. That's what he said. He said, shut the hell up about drafting a quarterback. He didn't say it, but he acted like it with his words in the field. Mm-hmm. So, for now, we will not entertain any quarterback draft talk.
Cool. This one's from Wyatt. He said, I remember in last week's podcast, actually, Kev, you brought this up already. You brought up Jacoby Brissett and not being able to throw people open. Do you think that improved, which you said earlier that you do think that improved? I think he did spectacularly on the throw to T.Y. and those passes to Doyle over the shoulder on curls. So maybe just continue to elaborate on that.
Yeah, for sure. I thought his ball placement was great, Wyatt. You and I were on the same board. Was he 75%? I mean, it's a very, very high number. So, yeah, thank you, Wyatt, for sending that one in.
And then this one's from Ollie. He said, my man, got a cue for the pod. If T.Y. is out for some reason, who are the free agent wide receivers you'd chase? Oof, it's dark thought. Much love from Australia. Go Colts.
Oh, awesome. Down under for Ollie. Appreciate you tuning in, Ollie. Boy, the free agent wideout list. Michael Floyd. Mike Wallace. Is he still trying to play football? Didn't Torrey Smith just retire? Justin Hunter?
You're just Googling?
People always run a name. It's just a free agent list right now. I assume those guys are on the open market. I don't even know, to be honest with you. Do you sign Krishan Hogan off the Saints practice squad? I don't know. If T.Y.'s out, you probably need a fifth wideout for this week. It's not a must. You could roll with the four you got. I don't think it doesn't sound anything too serious with T.Y., but Colts do have two wideouts on the practice squad, Ashton Doolin and Chad Williams, so they might just want to go in-house as well.
Cool. This question's from Casey with a K. Continuing on the Hilton line here, do the Colts think about sitting Hilton next week in anticipation for the Chiefs?
Oh, boy, that's dangerous. That's a very, college football thing to do. Oh, we got Georgia Southern this week. Let's sit, whoever.
Yeah, but, he's injured a little bit.
For sure. No, I think it's a very fair question from Are you back in Casey or are you back in me?
I'm back in Casey here. Trying to get the woman fellowship. Well, I guess we don't know that. I hope Casey's a woman.
I'm going to have to apologize.
Sorry, Casey.
Casey, I think it's a great question. It is something that I think if there's long-term risk, I think you do probably rest them. Man. But I hate having that mindset because I think every game is so important. I think 16 games are 16 games. Should you beat the Raiders without T.Y. Hilton? Yes, without a doubt. So maybe you do rest them. That'll be something to monitor throughout the week.
It also doesn't have to be all or nothing. You can put him in a little bit.
Yeah, I think it is all or nothing. Okay. I mean, definitely dial back his playing time, though.
Okay, cool. Scott says, loved Okereke. Any way to get Bobby and Darius playing alongside each other?
Yeah, I think there is a potential of that. I think we started to see a little bit of that even when Anthony Walker, Darius Leonard, and Bobby Okereke were all healthy. I mean, Walker's snap counts were not crazy high the first 2 weeks of the season. He probably played like, I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, 60, 70% of the snaps the first 2 weeks. I think Okereke had played 20%. So Okereke was definitely getting on the field. So, yeah, I think that could be something similar to Kari Willis at safety we could see.
Cool. Jason says, starting LBs, Okereke, Leonard, and Walker. When Leonard comes back, move Okereke to Walker's spot since he's more comfortable at that position. I think Walker is versatile enough to move around. Thoughts?
No, you want Anthony Walker's cerebral self out. They had a couple tackles for loss yesterday. He had like 14 tackles. You want to keep Anthony Walker on the field. Yes, you can bring Bobby Okereke on, and maybe he plays more on passing downs. He had really good coverage on the interception by Clayton Geathers. But let's not take Anthony Walker for granted here, people. This is a guy that is a smart football player, and you only play with 2 linebackers anyways. It's not very often you play with 3. Matthew Adams is that 3rd linebacker. So I would stick with Walker mostly, and then, again, bring Okereke along.
Cool. Laura says, it seems rhetorical, has there ever been a more win-win trade in the history of sports than the Brissett-Dorsett trade?
Remember to talk into the mic.
Oh, sorry.
There you go. There you just in case, because I feel like at times I'm so loud and you're so quiet.
Are you going to cut that out?
No, we're going to leave it in there.
Oh.
It's hard. I do the same thing where I'm like looking at my laptop for stats and whatever.
Sorry if you guys couldn't hear me. Should I repeat the question?
No. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. What did Laura say? Laura
said, has there ever been a more win-win trade in the history of sports than the Brissett-Dorsett trade?
Wow, history of sports is a lot of sports, Laura.
Lots of trades.
Yeah, lots of trades. I say it's worked out really well for both teams. Man, Philip Dorsett with the Patriots has looked pretty good. A lot of people look good with the Patriots though. Man, who would have thought that trade would have turned out to be what it's been? And yeah, I mean, for how much Frank Reich or Chris Ballard admittedly says he screwed up the Scott Tolzien thing, not getting a quarterback in here earlier in 2017, some pretty good scouting so far on Jacoby Brissett.
Cool. After every time you end, I say cool. I need to think of a different thing to say.
Thanks for the question. Here we go. Moving on.
Good pointer. Robbie Larada says, is Jack Doyle a guy you would absolutely bring back next season? To me, he showed why he is such a valuable member of the team yesterday with his 3rd down conversion and his catches in the middle of the field. Is that enough to get paid as a TE1 again next year? Yeah,
I think Jack Doyle. I lean towards Jack Doyle more than Eric Ebron, which I know some people might disagree with.
Well, you have an affinity towards Jack Doyle, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm not bringing any bias on this podcast here. You got to be... Yeah, I mean, you got to show. I'm honestly thinking what the Colts are going to do. The Colts are obsessed with Jack Doyle. That's why he plays so much more than Eric Ebron. And I don't think Jack Doyle will be asking to break the bank. I've talked before about Eric Ebron and looking for that big payday. It's a tough call, but Jack Doyle showed yesterday why he's a reliable guy that gives you help on the rundowns and on the pass downs.
Great question. Now let's go to the next one.
That sounds so scripted. Just say the person's name.
This question is from Zach. He says, when will Eberflus learn to play man? So does that mean like man-to-man defense? Man
coverage, yeah, Zach. I mean, he promised it. Don't think we've seen that much of it. We haven't seen a whole lot of success. It's something I'll ask Matt Eberflus tomorrow and hopefully have more on the Thursday podcast when Joey and I come back at you. But you just want to see a little bit more creativity from that side of the ball.
Ben Orr, do we have enough on Brissett now to rank him against playoff defenses? I'm thrilled for the overall team performances, but my level remains, how far do we go in January? I like what I've seen so far, but it's been non-playoff teams and coaches.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go. I think that's a little harsh. I think Atlanta, Tennessee, and the Chargers, I know they haven't been great teams, but I think, and I guess Tennessee and I guess all these teams are 1 and 2, but they aren't like bottom feeders. You aren't playing the freaking New York Jets, Miami Dolphins here. So, I'm not ready to sit here and say like Jacoby Brissett can deliver in January for you. Like that's a high bar that he still needs to clear. But I don't know how you can look after the first 3 games and not be pleased with what Jacoby Brissett has given you. And it's more so of just what he has individually shown, less about the competition. I've just been impressed by his poise and his accuracy. Those are questions I had coming into the year. How would he be from a throwing the football standpoint, accuracy, and how would he handle stuff pre-snap, things? Have we seen the catastrophic turnover? He's thrown 1 pick. I mean, yeah, there were a couple moments in that Tennessee game where a little shaky, but you haven't gotten behind, too much because of him early on. Impressed by Jacoby Brissett, certainly, but it's 3 games. Let's pause a little bit. Let's get into October before we start, making, I think, a little bit more concrete answers on that.
Next question's from Brissett's season. Can you put into words how much better Frank Reich's play calling is compared to Chuck Pagano? It amazes me how much better Reich is.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Chuck wasn't calling the offensive plays when he was here. Frank Reich just gets it. He just gets it as a head football coach in the sense of how he handles an offensive game plan. He sets up things so well. There's no doubt in my mind he knew the limited targets to Zach Pascal. He looked on his play sheet and thought, Zach Pascal has not been targeted in 54 snaps. That's a tendency. That's a trend an opposing team sees. How do we take advantage of that? Boom. You took advantage of it on Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I mean, Frank Reich infinitely better than the previous coaching staff.
All right.
Let's do 3 more.
Okay. Tom says, like to know where Houston was yesterday.
Yeah, you need better out of your D-line. Justin Houston, 1 sack through 3 games. You probably need a little better there, honestly. Kamoko Turi had the 1 rush. I was very disappointed in the defensive line yesterday. Mm-hmm. Coming into the game, I mentioned on Thursday's podcast, you're going to win this game in the trenches. Your O-line did a pretty good job, busted the big run there late. Your D-line, you won in spite of them, which is not something we said the first 2 weeks of the season.
Dalton says, are we underutilizing Ebron? He's looked good down the field.
Yeah.
My question about Ebron is why he wears that really big long sleeve T-shirt underneath.
That's baggy.
It's so baggy.
Is he getting ready for fall?
I don't know. It just looks weird, I think.
Yeah. I'm used to these guys wearing like the tightest stuff possible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Ebron's got swag, though. You can't. I mean, he'll be the first one to tell you that. I don't think you're underutilizing him. No. I'd like to see a little bit more Kane and Campbell, but let's not nitpick too much on the offense right now.
Final question?
Yeah, 2 more.
2 more? All right. This one's from Matt. Do you think the Colts move up for QB in the draft?
Oh, no, move on.
Okay.
Skip that one. Sorry.
Sorry, Matt. Tim says, what isn't Brissett using? I think maybe why isn't Brissett using Kane that much yet? He's only been targeted 6 times this season.
Wow, is it really only 6? Yeah.
I was counting.
I mean, has there been any wideouts been targeted more than 6 times besides Hilton? That's just from the seat of my pants. I have no idea if that's true or not, but I would like to see Kane get a little bit more involved, especially with the snap counts he's playing. He's playing a decent amount. It seems like very specific back shoulder stuff for him. But just in general, the wideouts maybe haven't had as much production as you would think here so far in 2019.
All right. Final question is a more specific question around the defense from Skoog. It says, it's been wild to have a coach like Frank Reich, who seems to always be a step ahead of the defense. I know you've expressed frustration with Eberflus's play calling, but have you seen any improvement this year? Does the D look more complex and strategic?
Skoog, Mike Skoog, the legend, chiming in. No, I really haven't. Been disappointed, in that side of the ball. For the most part, there's been moments with the pass rush that have helped out. The secondary's had some flashes. Hooker has definitely had some good moments as well. But I just, again, it's a raised standard for that side of the ball this year. Just haven't seen as much as I would like. But I think Derek Carr and Patrick Mahomes will provide 2 decent opportunities next couple of weeks. I think he come back from the bye. Is Houston the first game back from the bye? I think it is. Carr, Mahomes, Watson the next 3 games. defense is going to have a chance to reshape my thinking.
Yeah, we're only 3 games in.
3 games into it.
What's up next for us, Kev?
All right. Basically, the Colts will be on their same regimented schedule this week. Coordinators talk Tuesday. Then they'll get on the practice field Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. As I mentioned in this podcast, we'll definitely hit on injuries this week, as there are a few names to watch. On paper, the Colts are going to be, at least a touchdown favorite, maybe more, for Sunday's game against Oakland. But a couple injuries to watch, and just be a professional this week. Sounds like I'm my dad talking to Chad Kelly in the basement, but it's just be a professional. Do what you're supposed to do. Beat a team you're supposed to beat, and go into week 5, 3-1, going into Kansas City, with or without Andrew Luck. You would have signed up for that in Sharpie marker. You got anything else?
Nope. Thanks for having me back, Kevin's Corner listeners. I appreciate it. I know you'll be happy to hear Joey's voice once he gets back.
Mads, I thought you did a stellar job.
Thanks.
I thought you're outstanding. We'll see what the YouTube commenters say.
Yeah.
They might not agree.
Well, we can't base our happiness off of YouTube commenters, can we?
No, if we did that, it would be a rough life. We had a few people last time that were not happy.
Yeah,
that you
I know.
Were here.
Look, I can take it. I appreciate your constructive feedback and
you got
and the love
armadillo-like
as well.
skin.
Armadillo-like skin?
Yeah.
Oh, like tough skin?
Yeah.
I thought you were actually commenting on our skin.
No, gosh, jeez. That would not be good. That's Maddie Bowen across the way. She's been great. Joey Molinaro will be back on Thursday. Appreciate you all listening. If you have any other questions, KBowen1070 on Twitter and 1075thefan.com is all of your Colts coverage. Have a great week, everybody.
Love you, Kev.
This has been Kevin Bowen. Thank you for listening to another edition of Kevin's Corner. If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher for the best Colts and Pacers coverage.